start by asking you a question about how you chose the chateau, because I know you had been looking for a while. So
Yes.
what made you choose this particular one?
Well, we looked all over France, and in our price range there was usually something wrong with the place. There were beautiful buildings and a couple that I really fell in love with, but they'd be right next to a motorway. One of them you had to go through the town's municipal car park to get into the main gate.
Oh, no.
Another one was in an industrial estate, and then we got here and it looks so fairy tale. I think I wanted something a little bit fairy tale. Yeah, the turrets did it. And a little moat as well. I just loved everything about that. And I could see straight away that there was nothing but countryside around. And it was really idyllic. And I decided that we would buy before we came inside.
Before you came inside,
Yeah.
you knew it was the one?
Yeah, that was it.
See?
Wow. Oh my gosh, look at that.
This is our secret weapon. If somebody tries to attack us,
Yeah?
they get into the moat and that's the end of it.
Yep. And I know some mentions of it, the first building here were around, I think, the 1400s, you said?
Yes.
But what was the final date with everything that's here as it is now?
So the final building work that ever happened here was 1866.
Okay.
And the original part dates from late 1400s, but in fact there was a building here in the 1200s. I mean, there have been people living here probably about 1,000 years now.
Okay. And when you all bought it from the owner, how long had it been in his family?
His family had it for 200 years, and they got it because his ancestor was head of the King's Guards during the Revolution. So not a good role to have during the Revolution, and had to flee the country. His son grew up in exile and fought against the French, against Napoleon with the British. And then when the monarchy was restored, several decades later, he came back to France and married the French woman who owned this chateau. From the moment they married into this chateau, because it was so much close to Paris, the whole family lived here.
Okay.
And that was until the death of the Marquis, who's the father of the current Marquis, and the current Marquis is maybe 90. So when his father died back in the 80s, from that point on, it was just a family holiday home. And so they saw it deteriorate really fast, and it was very hard because they'd all grown up here.
Yeah.
And they felt that they had to sell because no one was agreeing on what works could be done.
Right.
They were too big a family.
Yeah. And that was the way it got loved again.
Yes.
Yeah. So is this chateau on a historic register in France? I don't know how.
No.
I'm sure everything is on. Okay.
No, really not. So there's two lists in France. There's a list 1 and list 2. France is so rich in history, this isn't even on either of the lists.
Okay. How did you come to learn everything you know about the history of the property? Was it through the previous owner or?
Through the previous owner, and a local historian did quite a lot of work as well and came around and gave us all of his research. And that's when we discovered that it had been owned by Louis XIV's cousin, which was really exciting because she was a fairly formidable woman. And it's been owned by quite a lot of women, actually, which is unusual for chateaux.
And perfect for you.
Yeah, it's perfect. It feels right. And she was campaigning for vocational training for the poor and for national health care and for stopping marriage, actually, because she said it was the enslavement of women in those days.
Yeah.
So she was way ahead of her time.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Can you kind of describe what the condition was like when you walked in for the first time?
In fact, decoratively it looked fine, but the problem was it was very dark and quite pokey because in the 19th century they'd put a lot of internal walls up just to make it warmer, I think, probably in winter. And so the dining room, which is quite small as it is, was 3 rooms. The grand salon was 3 rooms. And one of them was the laundry room, which opened out onto the terrace. Made no sense at all. But decoratively it was okay. The problem was that all of the decoration downstairs was done onto asbestos. So all of the asbestos had to be removed, which meant all of the decoration needed to be removed. And then we decided to take the internal walls down, which was great because we put it back to what it used to be. We got the enfilade back, we got all the light back. But it meant we'd lost all our floors because they'd all had different floors in each room. So everything downstairs, everything needed redoing. We put underfloor heating. Then we had to source all of the antique terracotta tiles. We didn't want to put new ones down. And we brought all of the ones that we had in the attic because there were a lot up there. That was a huge task, carrying them all downstairs. And we still needed to buy more, so we were sourcing them all over France. The whole flooring thing, it was long.
This room and that room you were just in, you will see it's got these small bricks inlaid. These were the original bricks of the section, and we're now in the 15th century section.
How long were you all living in the home before you started the renovation?
We lived here for 1 year, just to get an idea of the light and the way we use the place, because sometimes you think, oh, I want to use this bedroom, for example, but then it doesn't feel right, or it's too far from the kitchen. And I think it takes a while with a house this size to know where you want the rooms. So after a year, we then started thinking about, well, doing all of the major renovation works.
And speaking of bedrooms, because I noticed during our Percy tour that there are many. How many bedrooms exactly?
There are currently 17, but we're building another 2 at the moment, so it'll be 19. And then, of course, once we're at 19, we can't stop until we get to 20. It's just too tantalizingly close.
Okay. And how did you come up with the ideas for decorating each room?
Well, I had never decorated anything like this before. So I'd lived in a lot of period houses, really beautiful mansions, but they were always nursing homes for the elderly with Alzheimer's. So although they were nicely decorated, they weren't filled with antiques. That wasn't possible. So I decided I didn't have the competence to just start, and I bought every design book I could find. Not so much about how to go about interior design, but just photos of the most beautiful homes. And I spent that first year just soaking up photos, and then just finding a starting point for a room, the right fabric or a beautiful piece of furniture or a lovely wallpaper, and then building a room around that.
What of the decor inside or pieces inside are original to the home?
The French billiard table is original. That's a very old one from maybe the 1830s, which is quite irritating because it's also French billiard, so there's no pockets.
Yeah.
So it's really frustrating, really frustrating. But because it's original to the house, I feel we need to keep it. There's a bedroom suite in the Marquise's bedroom, Chambre de bonne maman, and that's original Belle Epoque furniture that was hers, so from the late 1800s. The kitchen table as well.
Oh, really?
Yes, that was here.
Something I learned on my tour is that you grew up in a historic home.
Yeah.
So do you think that informed your decision to buy a chateau as an adult?
I think massively. I think if you've had a happy childhood and in a particular type of house, then you want to recreate. And also because I was living in the attic and it was a business, I would picture myself living in the main rooms and having parties with friends, and that was my fantasy life.
Yeah.
And I would pretend that's what was going on when everyone was in bed, and I'd run around the corridors at night. So now I can do that here for real.
Oh, that's so cool. Stephanie, thank you so much for having us here. We've really enjoyed our time, and thank you for showing us your beautiful chateau.
It's a joy. You can come back anytime. Cheers.